Welcome back to 13 Stripes TV. Let's dive into Senator Rand Paul's warning about emergency powers. In a powerful speech to Congress, Senator Rand Paul criticized the unchecked expansion of emergency powers.
Emergency powers were not the type of rule our founders anticipated for our country. The other name for emergency rule is martial law. It's something all of us should object to and say that should only happen in an exceptional case, be very limited, and have the ability of Congress to overturn. If anyone doubts that emergency powers can be abused, just look to Canada. As Jean Healy of Cato Institute wrote, America's neighbor to the north offers a cautionary tale about the risks that broad emergency powers could be turned inward against political dissent. In early 2022, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faced a mass protest against COVID-19 restrictions, in which Canadian truckers obstructed key border crossings and effectively shut down the capital city with their rigs. Instead of simply clearing out protesters and punishing them via conventional legal means, Trudeau invoked emergency powers broad enough to permit the financial unpersoning of anyone participating in the protest. He went to their bank accounts and took their money. When people raised money voluntarily through crowd financing to help these truckers, he stole that money as well through martial rule. Without any rule of law, he took the money. No transaction with the protesters. He took their money. People were locked up under martial law. Canada's 1988 Emergencies Act gave the Trudeau government staggering powers to subject individual protesters to debanking without due process. This is the danger of presidential power, of excessive presidential power. It isn't about any individual president. It's about all presidents of either party, because men and women will succumb to the desire for power. It's inherent in all. That's why we must have checks and balances. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland put it this way in describing Trudeau's martial law. As of February 2022, in a warning to the truckers, as of today, a bank or a financial service provider will be able to immediately freeze or suspend an account without a court order. The government of Canada, essentially Trudeau, could freeze a bank account without a court order, without due process of law. We are today serving notice. If your truck is being used in these protests, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended. Send your trailers home. And while native-born Americans may think that emergency powers are to be used to target others, I would venture to guess that the Canadian truckers protesting COVID-era mandates didn't expect that their government would treat them as foreign adversaries and freeze their accounts. If it can happen in Canada, it can happen in the U.S. Expansive emergency powers do not end there. Today in the United States, a country that owes its very existence to tax revolt, the president can unilaterally impose and raise taxes on foreign imports. Now, some of that power, unfortunately, Congress gave to the president, but it was a mistake, and we should take the power back.
Unchecked expansion of emergency powers. He warned that such authority risks undermining democratic principles and could lead to martial law. Paul reminded us that the Founding Fathers never intended for emergency rule to become permanent. It's meant for truly exceptional cases, with clear limitations and robust oversight by Congress. Paul expressed concern that emergency powers can be abused by any government. He cited Canada's response to the 2022 trucker protests. Prime Minister Trudeau used emergency powers to freeze accounts and seize donations without court orders. Paul argued this amounted to martial rule and warned such overreach could happen in the U.S. Expanding on presidential power, Paul criticized the authority to unilaterally impose taxes on foreign imports. He called on Congress to reclaim these powers, asserting that excessive executive authority erodes checks and balances. Paul concluded by urging Congress to limit emergency powers and reaffirm its role as a check on executive authority. Protecting democracy means preventing the concentration of power in any one branch of government. Let's heed his warning.
The rallying cry of our American Revolution, no taxation without representation, was not just a protest of the past, it's a core principle of American governance. And yet Congress, in its feckless desire to abscond on all responsibility, said to the president, you can have it, we don't want it, you can raise taxes anytime you want without a vote of Congress. Terrible idea. Our Constitution was designed to prevent any branch from overstepping its bounds. Unchecked executive actions, enacting tariffs on our citizens without a vote of Congress, threatens our economy, raises prices on everyday goods, and erodes the system of checks and balances that our founders so carefully crafted. The Republic Act, the reform of emergency powers, the limitation of emergency powers would correct this. We end up saying to the president that you can't declare an emergency to raise a tax. Our founding fathers were very specific. Not only did taxes have to originate in Congress, they had to originate in the House before coming to the Senate, because the House was seen as being closer to the people. And yet here we are talking about vast taxes being levied by one person through emergency powers. We should not let this stand. Finally, the Republic Act, by reform, requires the president to disclose presidential emergency action documents to the Congress. What are these? These are executive orders are prepared in anticipation of a wide range of emergency scenarios. These documents are kept secret, and Congress has historically had little oversight or insight into how many exist, what they say, and what are the powers that the president anticipates taking in an emergency. Although the documents have never been made public, there have reportedly been emergency orders designed to unilaterally suspend habeas corpus, impose censorship, and seize property without warrants. We don't know for certain because they will not reveal these executive orders, but we do know that they exist. Congress desperately needs to see these documents to conduct oversight of these secret plans that can threaten basic constitutional rights. We do not have to accept as inevitable or as an inevitability the degeneration of a republic into a rule by an all-powerful executive. We do not have to live in a monarchy disguised as a republic. We would do well to remember Montesquieu, who wrote that when the executive and legislative powers are combined into one branch, no liberty will remain. It's time to reclaim the authority of Congress and protect the liberties of people by paring back the vast emergency powers delegated to the president. I hope the powers that be will change their mind and see fit to allow a vote on this amendment. There is significant bipartisan support. We passed it out of committee, I believe, 13-1. The Democrat chairman is a co-sponsor of this bill. I think this is a bill that really should bring both sides together. There used to be pride in our country, the pride in the legislative branch to hold firm against usurpation of power by the other branches. This was a pride that went beyond party label and brought legislators together. In recent years, it's been disappointing. Some people are for presidential reform of presidential emergencies when their party's not in power, and some people are for it until they're against it when their guy or their woman is in power. I can tell you this, I've been for this emergency reform under the previous president. I'm for this emergency reform under the next president, because this is about power. It's about the dispersion of power. It's about decentralizing power. It's about the constitutional separation of powers. It's about checks and balances. It's important enough that it should be considered. I think it would pass were it considered, but the American people need to know that important debates like this will only occur if the powers that be allow the vote to occur. So I would beseech the powers to be to allow a vote on this amendment and for my colleagues to vote yes. Thank you, and I reserve the remainder of my time.